I'm glad that you're here. We're so happy to have you guys.
Yes. Oh, Florida, Key West.
I'll be in Florida
Can you
on
send some
Monday.
sunshine? Because it is bitter cold here in Indiana.
It is ridiculously
I
cold.
can't. I
And
can't.
this Texan, I can't handle that type of weather. I'm just being honest with you.
So cold, our school buses are not starting and had to have it tutored away. So if you need an idea.
That's Indiana for y'all. Well, welcome to our webinar. If it's your first time here, thank you for being here. If you're a repeat, thank you for coming back. I am Shantae. I am the STEM learning coach for STEM Education Works. I have been a teacher and then I transferred into the STEM world. I helped build a STEM program in Texas. I'm very passionate about getting STEM into the hands of our future generations. That's kind of about me. Oh, awesome. You're originally from Lafayette. Well, that's where we're located, is Lafayette, Indiana. Although I feel like I don't really truly know where I'm located because I travel a lot with my job, which is so fun. And that's not me complaining. It's just the facts.
Yeah.
And this is my coworker slash one of my besties.
My name is Medina Coates. I too am a former teacher. I taught elementary education for almost 20 years. I've taught all grade levels minus kindergarten. It's not for me. But for those of you, if you do teach kindergarten, much respect for you. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And so I do come from a school that has a STEM studio, a space designated for technologies and places for kids to come and, build, be creative, and be inspired. And so I'm here with Shantae. Here at STEM Education Works, I do a lot of the studio installs where I go to schools and travel. So Shantae and I both travel, and I go to the schools and do the studio installs and set up all the equipment, and then she comes in and teaches the teachers and shows them how to work the technologies.
Yeah, we're definitely yin and yang here. So we both do things and we interact a lot together. So you'll notice that pretty quickly.
North Dakota minus 16 degrees. So
I'm not complaining anymore. I'm sorry. I apologize ahead of time for the complaining. It won't happen again. All right. So thank you for joining us. Today we are going to talk a little bit about creating a STEM space within your school or your program or wherever you may be. I will say this. Everybody's is going to look differently. So we're really going to talk through some of the key things that we feel like are important in creating a STEM space.
Which I feel like with teaching, you do what's best for you.
Yep.
And what works for you. So there's not one that fits,
it's not a one size fits all
in all schools.
No. Anyways, so we're going to get into this and hopefully just know, let me start with this. I taught 8th grade, and I always say this, but I'm going to repeat it. I taught 8th grade. I really feel like it's really important for people that are within the crowd to feel like they can unmute and talk if they need to. I know there's a lot of us today. So you're welcome to put it in the chat. Any questions throughout the time, we're going to be monitoring the chat at the same time. Do not hesitate to be like, hold on, I disagree with that. Because like I said, I taught 8th grade. You're not going to say something that's going to hurt my feelings. Most likely it's been said.
Also like to hear from you too. Like, what's best for you and
your input and things that you guys are familiar with using. So you might have stuff to add to this conversation. So please feel that you can. Anyways, so we're going to get started. Welcome to our webinar called Creating a STEMazing Studio. It's very fun to say, so I'm going to say that before I get started. All right, so first and foremost, every space is unique. So maybe you have a makerspace within your school or within your classroom. I want to start with the word makerspace because oftentimes it either leaves a really bad taste in someone's mouth or not a bad taste in someone's mouth. People are very into it. Right. I just want to say that it's very important to me that everyone feels that they are being recognized for the work you are doing within the classroom. So maybe you don't have a bunch of technology. Maybe you're just using the STEM mindset and building off of that. If you're doing that, thank you for doing that. If you have a bunch of technology, we love it too. But the biggest thing is making sure that our students have a space that they're able to be creative and get outside of the zone of the normal day-to-day of classroom, which is necessary. I taught in a STEM school where I was the STEM specialist and kids came to me for rotation. That's what I'm used to. Her school, she had a STEM room that everyone got to use.
And some schools also have then the STEM studio or space or lab where they have a designated teacher like you do. In my school, we had it offered for kids grades K through 5, where we kind of rented the space to utilize the technologies and the supplies that were inside of it. So again, every school can look different, every space can look different. So not one fits all.
Not, yeah, exactly. And I did have a makerspace within my classroom. So I was a specials rotation like PE and art, and they came to me. I loved doing that because I got to see all the kids. That's an amazing way to do it as well. But sometimes funding doesn't allow for it. So how do we make this a space where everyone
Money's
can
an
use
issue
it?
in education.
I know, crazy, right?
That's
We
weird.
thought money was just coming out the wazoo in education. What? That's not happening. Yeah. So I would like to make sure that everyone feels that it's important that you figure out what works for your school, obviously. So this is just some ideas that we've talked about as we talk about a space that we're utilizing. So just again, any questions, any comments, any like, hey, this is what we have. We're real good at giving opinions. So if you want help with like opinions about what you're utilizing, please reach out. We will help you with that. All right, so understanding your space is going to be probably one of the more important things. So we're just going to really quickly, and I know you guys most of y'all have worked with kids enough to know that like this is important to think about as you're creating your space. We just want to touch on it for a second, and then we're going to really get into some more. But understanding your students, collaboration space, making sure there's space for that collaboration, what supplies, and then also the learning needs of your students. So we're going to start with growth mindset, and I'm going to let you start with that.
Yeah, so growth mindset is, one of those big buzzwords. I did a lot of research and talked a lot about it with my students and kept journals. And I think it's really important to incorporate that in the STEM world. And so you can see here, we've listed a few things, combine it in your STEM projects. We have the kids that I feel like, especially the higher ability kids who really struggle to fail, to make a mistake because they didn't get it the first time, to remind them that in this STEM world, when doing projects, you're not going to know the answers all the time. So to foster that within the classroom, I just use that word foster, but foster an inner dialogue for STEM exploration, encourage exactly what kind of positive thinking, the grit, the perseverance. I think in this day and age with all the social media, video games, kids don't necessarily have a lot of those in-depth problem solving skills, is grit and perseverance to keep going, to keep, I made a mistake or I didn't get it right the first time. To keep going with that growth mindset, and that, there's other things to think about. I can improve. How can I improve it? I can always improve. Am I on the right track? I can keep trying even when it's hard. And then obviously another kind of buzzword is yet. I'm not getting there yet, but I will. It's just going to take some time. We used to talk about other inventors and people who spent a lot of time until they got the perfect solution or the right answer. And that kind of helped a little bit with the growth mindset. In fact, I always brought up that solution 409. It took 409 tries to get the perfect solution to clean the countertops. And the kids are always like, oh my gosh. So growth mindset, because STEM can be hard as much as it can be fun. So.
Love it. Awesome. All right. And then we're going to talk just for a quick second about learning needs. Now, I am speaking as someone who does have learning disabilities. I specifically have ADHD. In case y'all didn't already know, that was very apparent, I feel like, but in case you didn't know, I always have found STEM to be very interesting as a neurodivergent person because it allows for me to not have to do the normal. It gives me a chance to get outside of what I'm used to being seen in the classroom and get to use my creative side. That's something I'm very strong at, is creativity. And if I feel stifled, I'm not listening, I'm not focusing. And of course, I've had to work through that, but understanding that is important. So with STEM, something that I like to point out when I taught STEM is that I told the teachers initially not to give me any information about the students at the very beginning when they came to me, because I really didn't want their disabilities to be something that impacted how they interacted in the room. I wanted it to be coming in as a fresh start. Of course, you need to know this information about the students to make sure they're getting their needs met. But initially, I was like, I just want to see what these students can do when there's not any type of label feeling over them at the moment. And I really saw kids who have IEPs and have 504s feel a place where they can just be, because it's not this pressure of like being able to read something correctly. Like they're getting to be
there's no one answer.
Yeah, there's not one right
Multiple
answer.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of my kids who had different learning needs actually thrived in the environment of a place to just get to be and create. So I just like to, and I know y'all know that this is very prominent, but just like to point out how we're bringing kids with all different types of learning needs in the classroom. And yes, I am talking about ADHD and autism and dyslexia, but there's so much more to learning needs than that, right? So also depends on where the student is, the environment they're coming from, what they've been exposed to or not exposed to. And really that's something that you really have to consider in that space. There are going to be kids who are going to need their own area to be where they're not feeling overstimulated, like a place to go and just recollect themselves, and making sure that that space is there for them is really going to help them feel that this is a place they can thrive. So, and again, I know I'm speaking to the choir on that. I know that you guys know this stuff. So that is not me trying to do that. I just like to acknowledge it.
Well, and to know that STEM is open for everybody.
Which is why representation matters. Just another fun fact to throw out there. If we don't represent every student coming into our room, they don't feel that that can be them. So I challenge you to constantly be bringing not just previous well-known inventors, but also current things happening, bringing in current people that are doing the work right now. Because a black and white photo of someone that is previous, that's cool and amazing, right? We do want to talk about that, but for them to see someone that's today doing it, that looks like me, it's really empowering, really empowering. So making sure your space contains a lot of that and also bringing in a lot of that representation. All right, collaboration.
Collaborate and listen.
That's right. She's going to do that this whole time. Just letting y'all know. It's going to continue. So I know, you know, collaboration is important, but collaboration within the STEM classroom is just a huge, huge part of what makes STEM STEM. Now, I taught gifted ed. So in Texas, it's called gifted and talented. I know other places it's called different things, but one thing that I did notice is that a lot of times my gifted kids were like, I don't want to do this with them. I want to do my own thing. I want to do it by myself. But giving them that space to actually learn how to collaborate is going to take them so far, because it is important to be able to work alone when you need to, but it's also important to know how to collaborate with people. And even if they don't go into a STEM field, this is information that they can use in all relationships. So we do talk a little bit, just going into this whole team jobs thing, giving everybody a purpose for what they're doing in the group, giving everybody an opportunity to represent a part of the group. Because you're going to have, not me, but there are shy kids out there, or kids that are reserved, that are not going to speak up, and giving them a purpose is part of what makes it just really work. I know that with my classroom, I would have where there's a speaker that is the only person allowed to speak to me, hypothetically, of course. Like, obviously, if they need to talk, I'm going to listen. But we're talking about the project itself. And that way, it's just one kid coming and communicating for the group, and they learn how to represent their group. And I rotate who does each job. And I feel like it really, keeps my sanity in place, and also allows for everybody to be like, no, I know what my job description is and who I am for this group today. And it really makes them feel empowered, in my opinion.
Well, we always have the one person who wants to take charge and take over the project. And so it is, again, it allows for everybody to have a part in it and work together.
Yeah, and feel seen and heard, and feel that they matter to the group.
Right.
All right. Supplies.
Yeah, we're gonna get more into this as our presentation goes on, but basic supplies, the more the merrier. I mean, I feel like teachers are somewhat organized hoarders. I mean, we'll take toilet paper rolls, we'll take buttons, we'll take coins, whatever it is. Have as many building supplies as you can in that classroom or that space. Again, cardboard. It does not have to be perfectly cut cardboard pieces, but construction paper, lots of different tools for the students to access: scissors, tape, glue. I always think a whiteboard or an interactive board is best. If you don't have one, that's okay. I'm a person that loves to do Google Slides, just so I have all my information up on the board. I don't have to repeat myself. They can look at it and reread it. There's times I put a timer on Google, just type in the timer, display that on the board. So it doesn't have to be, it's something for everybody to access and to see. And then technology can be a component to your STEM lab or studio space, whatever it is that you have. Doesn't have to be, but definitely if you do have technology to figure out, and we'll get into this, but where are you going to house all these materials and technology spaces or pieces in your class?
I also like to point out when it comes to technology, especially when it comes to the T in STEM, I know that this is evident, but it's not always evident that technology is any advancement. So when we look at this and we see the word scissors, that's actually a technology. So don't feel like every time you're doing some type of STEM thing, it has to have a computer or an iPad or a robot or whatever. Of course, that is so fun to include, and you should, because that is the future. But I also think it's important for students to understand that a pencil is a technology. Things that have allowed for us to make advancements are technology. So if you just have scissors and a pencil today and markers and a crayon, you're still using the T in technology. Like, don't feel weighed down by the concept of that.
Right.
I do think, again, that technology when it comes to robotics and stuff is super important for the understanding of like sequencing and algorithms. And we really are trying to get our kids to understand the future world, but also understand that it's okay to not have all that stuff to start out with. Yes. You can still have STEM without it. Of course, our company has a lot of technology and we're very much about that, but I also think it's important to acknowledge that other aspect of it as well.
And I should maybe a little bit piggyback off on that too. Don't forget, there's so many ways to find technology if you don't have the budget for it. Grants, it is a lot of work, I know, to write a grant, but there are ways around it to get yourself some of that technology if you're, interested in getting more of those things.
And we do have on our webpage a grant page that has active grants that we're always updating. So if you're like, we really do need a grant and we don't know where to go, we try to give that to y'all as a free resource. If you ever are like, I want help, also reach out to us because we can help you with whatever. If you need like a quote of an idea of types of stuff to get that you want to use as leverage.
We've both written grants. So yeah, been there, done that. We can help in any way. So.
Yeah, definitely utilize. Listen, hear me out. There's companies out there that have money that want to give it to schools. They do. We just need to find where they are. So just know that that is a thing. It's just sometimes we don't know where to look. I wish I had the knowledge I had now when I was in the classroom, because I feel like I'd have a lot more stuff in my classroom previously if I did. Furniture. Now, of course, in an ideal world, we could have furniture that has some of the stuff you see in the picture. It's really important, regardless of what furniture you have available, because we have to, half the time we have to use what's available, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever that is they gave us in our classroom is what we have.
Digging through the closet, finding that table with what you want.
Go to that one classroom everyone dumps tables in. We all know y'all have one that you have to dig through and try to find a chair or a table, a desk or something to fill in. But yeah, if you can have furniture that's easily movable, it's honestly the best choice for a STEM room, of whatever type of STEM room you're working with, because it allows for you to rearrange as you need to, depending on the space you need. Because you might be doing something where you need a lot more floor space.
Right.
And if that's the case, it's harder to like literally lift and move desks around. If you can have something that's easily movable, it's great. The furniture in this picture with the yellow stools actually is magnetic and it sticks to the top of the table. And then you push that and it all goes together. It's a pretty cool concept. Obviously, like it takes funding for that stuff, but I'm in love with it because it has storage under it too. So you can keep all the supplies in that one area. It's pretty,
You can stand, you can sit, it's very movable. In my studio space at my elementary school, we did not have these beautiful, fancy pieces of furniture. So, we made the best of it. We had to think outside the box as far as, are you doing first grade versus fifth grade? Their bodies are much bigger and smaller. Are you going to be on the floor? Are they going to be in groups? So it is totally doable if you don't have these beautiful pieces of furniture. However, to be thinking in the back of your mind that, if there's a furniture space with wheels on it or stools, it just allows for more access for kids to maneuver around.
And that furniture that we have on here is stuff that we actually partner with. So if you're like, I just want some information on it, you can ask us. But again, we also realize that furniture is not something that's easy to access. So we use what we can. So we do try to at least make it so that at least you can pull it around if you need to. And maybe you just put little rubber things on the bottom that make it easier to pull. Yeah.
Which then is what's going into our next slide here.
Absolutely. And that's arrangement. Hooray.
Yeah.
It's like we planned it.
I know, right?
It's ridiculous. All right. Multifunctional, which is what we talked about, right? Yes. Also giving space for student choices, allowing them to have some dictation on what they're doing. And then obviously, I know you've done cluster desks. You probably have done it. And then you realize that you've really hurt yourself by the way that you cluster these kids, and you recluster and you recluster, and somehow it's still not working. Yep. Story of my life.
Going back to student choices, I think sometimes for us as teachers, we have to kind of give up control, which I know is very difficult for a teacher. Well, yes. For me to do. I want to be in control. But if so-and-so wants to lay on the floor to do this project, you know what? If they can spread out and do their project, I have to be okay with that. Or if they want to stand, sit, it's just got to be this kind of organized, chaotic space, which we're not used to in the gen ed classroom when we're teaching math or, so to really give those kids the choice, which can be hard to let go of that control.
Yeah. I have to often ask myself, is this about me? Or is it about them? We are seeing your comments, just so y'all know, yes. And we will address it with you. We're collecting, I promise. Don't hesitate to say stuff to
Absolutely.
us. She's the note taker. That's why I need a sidekick, because otherwise it wouldn't be quite so smooth. Anyways. All right. Storage. And I know this is something that's always a problem in the classroom. Oh my gosh, I would start projects and then be like, where am I storing these till the next time they come back into the classroom? I know everybody knows that feeling if you've done projects where you're just like, I love this project, but it's so much space and it's so consuming of like, I just don't have the space to store. I will say that a lot of times I've had to renegotiate within myself how big the project should be, where it's like they can still build an amazing roller coaster without it being this big. They can still build an amazing model of their ideas without it being massive. Now, okay, but realistically, that almost never happens, right? So what do we do with storage? Obviously, we can't create more space. So couple things. One is, like, obviously we say that you should have some types of bins or whatever for them to have stored. I will say with my classroom, because I had K through 5 coming to me, and there was 4 teachers per grade level. And it's like, where do you store all that stuff? I literally had a bin that was stackable bins that were dedicated to that classroom, and all the kids would store their stuff in the bin that was their classroom bin. And I had them some that were like as big as like a type tub, like packing tubs that you would put in your attic. Is that the right word for that?
Sure.
Tub? Yeah. Sure, with a lid.
Tote.
But yeah, tote. That's the one I was looking for. We got there, y'all.
Oh.
But yeah, so I did, depending on the project, I did request from parents like, hey, could you send in one box or tub, tote, whatever. And sometimes that works. I also taught in schools where there was no money the parents didn't have money. So then I do a whole community request. There's churches in the area that were like, yeah, we'll donate for that. We love it. But that's
I also utilized, I talked to my admin and she gave me some random closet spaces throughout the building. I mean, I did a whole erosion where I needed like rocks and I needed sand and I needed, moss and just all these big tubs, and I work with a custodian, and if make friends with your custodians, as you probably already know. But they'd be like, sure, store this. I'd put my name on it. And so you got to get a little creative, because I did not have the space in my classroom for giant tubs of rocks and sand and potting soil or whatever it was that I was using. Now they do make these amazing carts, also to pegboards. I mean, you can get pegboards to hang all your scissors on, like what you kind of see in this picture, and tape, and there's a lot of options when it comes to storing your supplies. Color coded. You can share about what I mean.
I did. I know that's so elementary of me, so don't judge me in this process of talking about it. But I did have it where there was a color per table, and there were 6 kids per table. So one was a red table. When I say everything was red, the tub was red, the scissors were red, everything was red. And so if I looked on the floor and saw a pencil that was red, I'm like, red team, what's going on? Like we're not cleaning up after ourselves. Is this the thing we're doing here? Like we were able to like keep it contained a lot better. It really worked well for me. And when I say the scissor handles, everything, so that way I just had to glance and be like, seems like the yellow table is not cleaning up correctly. It was easy for us to make sure everything goes back. I had kids that were on it. And those were those material manager people. They made sure all the material was put back together and looked nice. I gave them a reason to want to also. But I would just say, yeah, obviously custodials, any type of custodial staff, they were my best friends, and they also could not stand me at the same time because they knew that my room was just going to be that room that was harder to get in and out of because of everything going on in there. So I was very much about, I found out what their favorite candy was, their favorite drinks were, and I really tried to once every couple of weeks just leave them a gift of like, thank you for what you do. I really do appreciate it. Obviously I held my kids accountable too to clean up, but
I also tried to, when I knew I was coming up with a unit or a project, a STEM project, to pull those things so I could kind of put some of the other stuff away so that not everything was out all the time, if you have that option. So that when I did a unit, it was just kind of those materials, which made it nice. And then I could find a space because I knew I wasn't going to get back to it until the next year.
Or like a comment that was just made, make them take it home.
Yeah.
Don't store it at all. That's in a perfect world, that would be amazing too. And I always end up not finishing the first class period.
Or you have a project that has multiple kids working on it, and I'm like, you guys have to decide who takes it home, but absolutely.
The debate is real with that.
Oh, we have a traveling STEM teacher. Yes.
Yes. Listen, we have lots of ideas for that because we have done like movable STEM rooms with some people. We definitely have some stuff to share with you on that.
Because that would be that's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Yikes.
It's a lot.
One thing I know that is helpful to have in my rooms, power strips, like zip ties to organize those cords to keep them from getting tangled up everywhere. They had like grouping together so it's easy to access.
Oh, robotics on wheels.
Amazing. Locked cabinets to keep things secure. I did try to keep things secure when I wasn't in the room just because I don't want there to be an actual temptation for my students. And that's not to say that they will still, but it has happened to me multiple times. And it's just let's just lock it up so it's not even there as a temptation to come in and try. Charging carts, I will say that my favorite thing that I own personally is a charging port thing that I can plug in all these USBs to, and it can charge everything at the same time. Clear bins are nice just so you can glance inside and know what's in there. Having that negative space, which we talked about a little bit earlier, just space to just be. It does not have to be all go, go, go all the time, because that can be overstimulating.
Space that doesn't have to have a table or chair. It can just be a blank carpeted space for kids to lay down, to do their projects, or for a group to meet together because the tables aren't working. I think, we try to fill up, and it's okay to have a little bit of that negative space to leave for other things that maybe we forget about.
Agreed.
So I'm jotting down there for STEM teaching.
She's taking notes from y'all's comments. All right, sustainability. This is the part that I think is probably the most important to most people. And that is the whole idea of like, okay, if I do invest in this whole concept of a STEM lab or a STEM space of some sort, how do I preserve that? First off is making sure that the access to knowledge and skills is always available, making it so that every student has access to this stuff. So that location of that is going to matter. If it's every classroom, that's amazing. Is that necessarily always going to happen? No. So how do we make sure that everybody is still getting access to it, no matter what group of students there are throughout the school? Then the social aspect of sustainability is that whole idea of like preserving our future generations. What you're doing right now, this whole idea of STEM is allowing for students to be able to see the future of their opportunities that are out there. I always make sure I'm bringing up new careers with everything I'm doing in the classroom. Every new concept I teach, I talk about careers that go with that, because if it isn't for us, they might not ever hear about it. And so that sustainability really, when it comes to that social aspect, is a huge part of what STEM is. And then of course, efficient use of the assets. Listen, I don't know how many of y'all have had it where your school has bought some cool new things and then they just sit somewhere because nobody knows A, how to use them, or where to use them, or like that happens way more than I'd like to admit to. And there was one point where I said, I wonder how much I spent on that. That could have been a bonus for me for, I don't know, the hard work I'm doing. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm just saying, like, we all know that happens. That is not what we want to see in the STEM field, is a place where these amazing things get built up and then no kid is using it. So I always say buy-in is important, and I know y'all know that, but if there's no buy-in, then where are we headed with this? So I think I know a lot of y'all are educators, and as an educator that moved into a role of admin, I really tried as much as I could to like go in and model in the classroom as an administrator. And when I modeled, I gave them an actual rubric to grade me on so that I could actually show them how I would utilize STEM within a lesson I was teaching. And they got to grade me on if I was actually doing what I'm saying that I'm doing. And it gave us a chance to really bond in that whole concept of like, hey, here's some things that you should work on as someone who thinks they have arrived, and not that I ever did, but like coming in here to teach me how to teach, but you have things to work on. Instead of me just sitting in the back of the room and saying, well, here's some things you need to work on. It was, let me do it. You tell me what I need to work on. And then we collaborate together to incorporate it into the classroom.
I also think too, we sometimes forget about the kids, where the kids can also be huge advocates for these spaces and creating leaders, and especially the upper elementary grades, middle school, high school. In my school specifically, we would pull out a few of those kiddos who would want to take on that challenge and be responsible. And doesn't necessarily mean the higher kids, and to make them classroom leaders, and then they would be willing to teach other peers in their grade level or younger kids. It allowed us to partner with younger students. I taught fourth grade at one point, partnered up with a first grade classroom. So there's so many ways of creating that sustainability so that it excites the next generation, excites the next year's kids, and that they grow and learn, and then they can continue year after year as well.
Yeah, which is awesome. I think if they don't have any buy-in as a student too, the space is not going to be utilized as well as you want to. So how do we get some of the students, the community, skin in the game as well? Because it really is about the community as a whole. How are we incorporating our community into our STEM lab so that our students become part of that community?
Right.
We want to build up what's around us.
And as you get bigger and as you get more into it, I don't know if you're starting from the beginning or if you're already there or moving forward, but we did a family STEM night here with our company to outreach to the family members and their children, and we created a family STEM night, which was great. So that's another way to get buy-in to with your community, so that parents, adults, professors, if you're in a local college community, can see what it is that you're doing in your building, and that what kids are coming home excited about.
Exactly. The more people we have involved, the better it is for the community and the growth of everything around us.
So it can really touch a lot.
Right. All right. So final touches. This is just us just wrapping it all up with a bow, hopefully. But just, again, you're seeing all different types of rooms in these pictures. There's some people that are about color coordinating each thing, and that's amazing. And again, the reason I did it is, again, for my own, how do I help myself with organization? Because with ADHD, organizing, I know if you have it or you work with kids who do, it's just not a thing. We don't do that very well. And so helping myself is about, how do I teach myself how to handle this? And that was the best way for me as someone who is not good at it, which is why I also have people who are good at it in my life to help me stay grounded. But our students need that too. So again, giving them a space that they can call their own and that they're responsible for is a big part of it.
And again, I know I keep hitting on students, but sometimes I'd ask my kids, hey, where do you think a great place to keep scissors are? And I would assume it would be in one spot. And my kids said, well, but really when we all walk and we go this way, it makes more sense. And I'm like, great, let's put them over there. So, sometimes they can help with you create that space, because then it also creates it for them as well. Again, it could look different though. Maybe it's one teacher in charge, maybe it's multiple teachers in charge of the studio space, maybe it's in your classroom, whatever the space is, it can be very fluid and work differently.
This is some contact info for us if you ever want to reach out to us, if you have questions or if you want us to share stuff with you. Yes, I'm setting the design. I love that.
I love that.
Letting students have agency on that. That's very, honestly, that's probably going to be another saving grace for you.
Someone had basically mentioned, well, and you might have seen it, having setting the design, which they would just go nuts with that, whether like blueprints or if you have the kids in architecture. Yeah, color coded. We have a fan of color coded.
That's obviously not my phone number. I don't know why that's in there. All right, so we have our email address, that learn@stemeducationworks.com is both of us. We share an email. We do have our own individual email, but it's easier if you email us as a group, because then if she's in the office, she can see it. If I'm in the office, I can see it, and we can both.
And can I stop you for just a second? Please send us pictures or, of your own space. It's just so cool to see. I mean, there's so many of us from around the country right now, world meeting right now. It'd just be really neat to see what your space looks like. And again, how we can help each other and see, and yeah. So
yeah,
anyways.
I agree with you. And I love it so much, but I also probably have like free resources to share if there's stuff you're interested in. I always make sure that I have some things to share that I can share. Obviously, we also are a company, so we do have stuff that we can help you with as for purchase, but I also just want you to know that like any support I can give, I will. I'm all about helping, because it's about, in the end, it's about giving to kids that need it, that might not have. So awesome. I love that you liked the color coded thing. That's amazing.
I like, somebody else brought up funding, and there's been a couple of those comments, and I think that's honestly something that Shantae and I can discuss, and maybe that could be a future webinar on grant writing, because that is a huge, it's hard too. It takes time. And so thank you for sharing those comments.
Hey,
yay.
I'm glad we try to be at least not super boring. I don't want you to feel like we're preaching at you. That's important to me. So I'm glad. Thank you for that feedback. We do have on our YouTube channel, grant writing. We did do a webinar previously. She's new. She didn't know. We did do a webinar previously that is about grant writing.
Yeah, grant writing is
popular. But if you guys watch it and you have more questions, email me.
Yes.
learn@stemeducationworks.com.
We will help you.
And I will help send you any type of direct help I can. I'm all about making sure that the money gets in the hands of y'all, because that's really where it should be.
Yes,
with you
absolutely.
guys.
And there's so many people that want to give the money to education.
Yes.
I know
it's
not everybody believes that, but
doesn't feel that way half the time.
We will find it for you.
Yes. On here, I'm just going to put up here feedback. If you want to leave feedback, you can. If you don't have to. You're also, again, say whatever is on your mind. Don't hold back.
That helps us grow.
Yes, I'm all about that.
It's okay to be honest.
Follow us. That's our page that has all of our social media stuff on there. If you're interested in following us on other things we're working on, we do these webinars once a month. Mm-hmm. We'll send you a certificate if you want one for the hour that you spend with us. So email me.
Please let us get you that for that hour.
Yes,
we know you put in.
Use that as credit.
More time than you need.
We will send you a with your name on it certificate. We just ask that you email us at learn@stemeducationworks.com if you want one, because I don't want to send it out to the whole group if you don't need one. I just would rather and I like it to be personalized, so I can send you also if there's anything else you need. But I personalize your certificate, I create it for you, and I'll send it to you with my signature on it. And who doesn't want that? I mean, I get it. Okay. This is why 8th graders just loved and hated me at the same time. All right.
Oh, thank you, Beth.
Thank you. We love going into classrooms. We do have a lot of fun together. We are a bit much. Listen, I'm the shoe queen, and so I always have the coolest pair of tennis shoes on when I go into classrooms.
And I'm trying to up my game
about my life. So yes, we really do appreciate you guys coming, but we are gonna
for everything you guys do. We know how hard it is, and we know the time and the. Yes. You guys are amazing teachers.
Thank you for everything
together because it's tough.